10,000 Club. Good morning. I am here with Cindy Beckwith today, and we are going to share all of our secrets about doing a listing presentation. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, how's it going?
Wonderful, wonderful. So we are excited today to share our tips and our tricks. And I've seen your listing presentation, and I think there'll be a lot of valuable information here for agents to pick up maybe some things that they aren't doing, they might want to add. We just want to get inside your brain and tell us how you present your listing presentation.
Sure.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and Kim knows I was early on in my career, I was very afraid about doing listings because I'd always was a buyer's agent. So yeah, so it's been a process, and now, hey, listings are the way to go.
Yes, absolutely. So, and we know that listings, we basically do most of the work on the front end when we take a listing. And then we sit back and we receive the offers, the buyer's agent does the showings, and we are there to still continue to work the process, but the buyer is doing most of the work. And so when you have a buyer, the buyer is the one that's out, running around, showing houses, writing offers. But as a listing agent, you've done your work, you've put the listing in, you've put it into the MLS, and you can sit and watch the showings come and go and wait on offers. So today what we want to talk about is going to a listing presentation. How should I prepare? What should I say? And we're actually at the end going to share a screenshot of what you prepare. And I've seen it, and it's absolutely amazing. It's very impressive. There's a couple ways, we'll say this, that you can, there's always a lot of different ways that you can do a listing presentation. There's no formula, but we're here to give you some of the tips of some of the things we do that make it very successful. We have this amazing Working with Sellers book that 5-Star has created.
Yeah.
And some agents simply put together a folder with some documentation with their CMA and take that book and work from that book. And that is absolutely acceptable as well. So
yeah, it's very professional, and it goes through the steps, and especially for new agents, I would highly recommend reading through it through that book, because there's a lot of great information. But I love 5-Star, how they market, because it's just a clean, crisp, classy presentation, and it's already there for you, really.
So let's just say I'm a seller and phone rings. Hey, Cindy, it's Kim Anderson. I am moving to Phoenix, Arizona, and I'd like to talk to you about selling my home. Where do you go from there?
Okay, so I just like what you mentioned, Kim. I try to do as much work over the phone as I can, because when I get in front of that client, I want to make sure I'm prepared. So they call me, first I'll, say hi, and I always will be very happy on the phone. They can read into, because people get this thing in their mind that, wow, I don't want somebody that sounds like they just woke up on the phone. So it's, hi, great. I'm so glad you called. And then I'll ask them some questions on, okay, you're moving to Phoenix. What's your time frame? I'll ask where their house is, how long they live there, what were the things that they liked about living in the house, because I can jot those down. Try to just really get to know them a little bit, so when I'm in front of them, it's more of a connection. But obviously how long they've owned it, how long they live there. Do they need to sell? A very important question is, do they need to sell their home before, if they're going to purchase in another state?
Okay.
And all that. So I have I try to, and then again, I don't go by memory, because some of you who know me, I carry a notebook with me. So I'm jotting those notes down, and I'll actually, date the paper. I'll have all those. So when I go, I have those in front of me so I can remember, oh, maybe they mentioned, oh, well, they have, their kids are older now, they're moving to be closer to family. So I can have, again, that connection when I meet them in person.
Mhm. Good, that's good stuff. I do the same. When you call, I just want to connect with you, get a little bit of information, and then my goal is to get in front of you. I want to get face to face with you.
Yeah.
I want to get inside the door, see the home. But prior to going, I will do a whole lot of homework, right? I will go into the MLS to see when did it last sell? How much? What did the pictures look like? I will get inside that home through all the public information before I ever walk through the door. I'm going to know a lot. I'm going to know a lot about what it looked like when they purchased it. And I'm going to go and research everything I can. I'll go to BSA software. I'll actually go to, even though when we go to a listing appointment, we prepare a CMA, we're looking at comparables that have sold preferably in the last 3 to 6 months. But I'll just go out and just say, what is Zillow saying? What's Realtor.com saying? What's BSA saying? So we go in and we've done all this. Okay. So we went and looked at the home, and now we are getting ready for that appointment. We've set it, and we're going to go out and see the seller. So we were talking earlier, you had some of your best tips about preparing for that listing appointment. And I would love to hear some of that wisdom.
Absolutely. Kim's right. The next important thing is book that appointment. And I like to book it as soon as I can, because I want to get in there. I feel like if you're one of the, and again, I may not know if they're interviewing other agents, but I'll want to book that appointment, get it on the calendar. But what I'll do too, Kim, another thing is go into Flex and see if that property had been listed before. Maybe it had sold recently. And so that gives me, like you said, you can go in, look at photos, and it gives you a look at maybe what the house looked like when they purchased it, all that. But when I'm preparing for that listing appointment, I'm the type of person I don't want to go there not knowing what I'm talking about, because sometimes I say fake it till you make it. But when you're representing somebody's property, they're going to know whether you did your homework or not. They're going to know. So I'm going to be as prepared, just like Kim said. I'll go through, I'll do the comps, I'll do all that. But what I do too is, and when she mentioned that selling your home booklet, I always take that with me because I think that is very professional. And if I find myself stumbling a little bit, I'll grab that book and I'll say, hey, look, this is kind of the process. This is what it looks like. Because sometimes you get nervous, you don't know. But when I'm going for that appointment, I get everything ready. I'll always have a list of questions when I get there, things that I didn't cover on the phone. I'll have something about me, my contact information, all that. I'll have some reviews, and obviously you want good ones. If you have any questionable ones, don't take those. I'll take some reviews. I have some information about 5-star. I'll take that with me because I'll promote the company. But then I'll also, I'm there because I want to show them that I am going to do the best job to sell their home. I'm going to sell their home in the least amount of time for the highest price that we can. And that through the whole process, they're not going to have to worry about things. I'm going to follow up with them. I'm going to go with a marketing plan, meaning I'm going to promote professional photos, all that. I actually have a sheet Kim will share with you later that kind of tells a seller how to get their home ready. I'll go with that because the more information we have, the better prepared we'll be for that listing. And then when I'm ready for that listing, I'm going to make sure I'm dressed professionally. I'm not going to go in tennis shoes. I'm not going to go in flip flops. That seller, when you get, again, like I was saying on the phone, how you are perceived on the phone, is very, very important, but even more so when you're in person, because you get to the door, you want to show them that you're professional, and that's how you're going to be marketing their property.
That's good advice. And I think the professionalism is so important. When that first impression, that first 10 seconds, 20 seconds, we want to be dressed professionally, wear a smile. Even if you don't have the latest and greatest model of a car, have it clean, bring your best foot forward, because that is your very first impression. Have your notebook, have your folder, your pen. If you wear a name tag, some people do, some people don't. I always hand them my card if I don't know them, so that they know, and it has my photo on it when I show up, that I am who I say that I am.
Yeah,
and
that's a great idea.
Yeah, and the number one thing when we go on a listing appointment, in my opinion, is to build trust. My first impression, connection, and I want to build the trust. We can get through all the information and all the details, but I really want to connect with that seller and let them know I'm the person, as you said earlier, that they can trust, and that I will take good care of them. This is probably one of the largest transactions any seller will ever have. And we want to know that we want them to know that they're in good hands. So we're showing up at the door, we're prepared, we are connecting with them. Once you get inside the house, what do you do first? Always remove my shoes. Always.
Yes. Oh, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that right there, that could not go well.
Yep. Then do you ask to sit at the table, or do you ask for them to give you a tour? I've heard all different ways that agents do it. What do you start with?
Okay, so when I walk in, I tell them, it's so nice to meet you. And I'll say, oh, wow, what a beautiful home. And I'll find something, and sometimes it's hard, but I will find something to compliment.
Yeah, that's good.
One of my recent listings, it was a tough one, and again, I treat every listing, I don't care if it's a lower price, higher price, I treat them all the same. But I always find something to compliment them on, whether it's the paint color, all that. So that kind of builds, that kind of gives you a connection to them. And
like
then
that.
I'll ask them. I said, I've come with I've got a lot of information. I'd love a tour of your home. And I'll just ask them, is it okay if I put my stuff on the table, or did you want to sit in the living room? I'll always direct it to them, because I don't know their comfort level yet. And so that's what I'll do first.
Okay.
And I'll smile.
Yeah. And then after you sit down for a few minutes, connect with them, then typically what I'll do is say, would you like to give me a tour of your home? Would you like to show me around? And then once we start walking around, I always have my notepad so that I can take some notes. I ask them to show me the things that they love about the house. Tell me anything that you would do if you would have stayed another 5 years, because that gives us tips as to what might need to be done. They go, well, I was gonna, I thought I would maybe update my kitchen and get some granite, or my roof's getting a little bit old. So we want to know what upgrades they've done, but we also want to ask them, what would you do if you stayed here? Because that's showing us what improvements may need to be done or could possibly be done. And then when you're walking around the house, do you take photos of some of the things, or do you just take notes? What do you do, Cindy?
Yeah, I do exactly what you said, Kim. I take a notepad and I'm constantly writing down things, because again, you think you have a great memory, but my mind's all over the place. So I'll take notes, and in between when they're showing me the house, plus I'll get a better idea of the total condition of the home. Walking in, you might have a living room and it looks just immaculate. And then you get
Mhm.
further in the house and, you find, oh, okay. And so I'll take notes and I'll really listen to what they're saying. And a lot of times what I find, they'll ask, well, what would you do? You think this desk looks good there? I have to hold back because I really like to stage houses. I'm not a stager, but I'm probably a wannabe stager maybe, but they'll ask me tips on what to do. And I'll say, oh my gosh, that bed that's an antique bed. That looks great. But you know what? I think this wall would look better if you put it in the middle here. And so I'll
Mhm.
give tips if they ask. I won't volunteer them because sometimes again, if you don't know the person, now if it's somebody I know and it's a friend, oh my gosh, they already know me. They already know Cindy's going to go in and change everything around. But so I think it's real important to kind of get the feel of the room.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
once we're there, if it has a basement, the basement can always, again, you can have a great first level, the basement. And I'll go through the basement. That's when I can ask them specifics too, like, have you ever had water in the basement? Or, oh, that right there, is that, in if there's a little spot, oh, was that pain? Or, so I'll get a better idea on that. And I feel like if you go through the tour of the house, you're gonna kind of warm up to them anyways.
Mhm.
Um,
So
and
we,
go ahead.
well, and so we have a question here from Jen. It's a good question. So let's talk about safety. So we're saying you call me, we show up to the house, and that's our first meeting. But Jen has a really good question here because she's saying that typically she would meet them elsewhere. So I agree. If you don't know them, I think we're talking about somebody that we know or maybe a past client. But it is always good if you don't know that seller, if you could meet them at the office. It's a little awkward, I think, because now you've got the first meeting at the office, then you want to go to their home. But absolutely, if it's a safety concern, what would you do, Cindy, in that situation?
Yeah, in this day and age, you got to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing I ask them on the phone is, how did they get my name?
Yes.
Now with social media and that, you can kind of get an idea of
Mhm.
who you're dealing with.
Yep.
I remember years ago, I had, I guess I had dealt with them before. I'll be honest with you, I didn't remember them. I had got a call and they said, hey, I'm ready to list my house. I want to list this house. Um, I looked it up and everything, and I'm like, I do not know these people. And honestly, I think they thought they were calling somebody else. But I actually went to the listing appointment prepared, but I took somebody with me because I really
Right.
didn't know and I was
Yes.
confused.
Yep.
And I walked in and they acted like they knew me. To this day, I ended up selling their house. To this day, I think they thought they were calling somebody else, but hey, it
You
all
took
worked
it.
out. But I took somebody with me. So don't be afraid to do
Right.
that, especially if
You
you're
could just
uncomfortable.
say, this is my partner, Kim, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't need to know, or my teammate, Kim, but
Yeah.
absolutely bring somebody with you. And I like that you said, stalk them on social media. You'll find out a lot. And I
Well,
call it stalking because that is what it is, right?
well, you can find out a lot
You can
and you
find out a
really
lot.
can.
Yeah. And also ask, how did you get my name? And then you could call
Yep.
your friend and go, hey, Sue just called me. She lives over in Kalamazoo. I just want to thank you for the referral. And then you can talk to then it's going to come out in that conversation if I don't know
Yep.
who Sue is, right? So
Yep.
that's a really good, important question. So I want to move along because we want to share your listing presentation with everyone today. So we're in the house. We have connected with them. We're going to sit down at the table finally. I want to bring up this issue. There are one-step and there are two-step listing appointments. It's always awesome if we can do it in one step, but sometimes you have to do it in two. I will, and we're not going to get into doing a market analysis right now, but when I do that, I will get as much as I can on paper and then be able to adjust up or down when I get into the home.
Yep.
But there are a couple different processes. Sometimes especially if you're new, you might have to say, could I my first appointment's going to be just getting to know you. I'd like to do a walkthrough of your home. You're going to connect, and then you come back at the second appointment and you sit down and you go through the listing presentation. I'm guessing you probably do all of yours in one.
Yeah, I try to, but the pure fact is, I don't want too much time. So if you're gonna book a second appointment, because usually what I try to do, my second appointment is if they're not filling out to get with them on the listing agreement and to get a photographer. So I've already got an agenda in my head because I'm going to that listing expecting to get that listing.
Right.
So, and everyone should have that mindset. And, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Right.
And then you have to learn, maybe think back why you didn't. And sometimes it's a blessing in disguise that you didn't get it. But I go prepared. I'll have a listing document with me and everything. But my next appointment, Kim, is going to be to get with them on the listing. And I try to schedule the photographer a little bit later after that, if they're ready to list. But I like to go in and again, my personality, I'm already knowing what the low, middle, and high price range that house is going to be at in most cases, unless I'm completely surprised. Because I want to know what I'm talking about. I've looked at comps. I'll go in on my listing presentation. I use the 5-star 2-pocket folder. For me, I love it. It's professional and I can get stuff in it. I'll always go with something with the market, what the current market is doing. I do a quick CMA of kind of what's sold and all that. Now, if I feel like that's over information, again, you're going to get to know your client more when you meet them. I may not share that, but in most cases, I probably will. And then I'm always going to have like a marketing checklist on what I will do, because I want them to pick me. I want them to know I'm ready. I've got a professional photographer. He's great. He knows I'm picky, and a plan for them, and then let them know that throughout the whole listing, I'm not going to disappear. I'm going to call them with feedback. I'm going to update them. I'm going to be in constant contact with them. And if it's a house that somebody's out of state and they want me to list it, I don't want them, I'm going to make sure that I follow up with them. I may drive by the property, make sure there's no lights on. Just that extra courtesy can really get you the listing.
Yeah. So let's just recap what you just said. With great information, a lot of information.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
That's okay. Let's just recap. So you're showing up at the door and you're going to have the 5-star Selling Your Home, very nice magazine booklet that 5-star created for us. Then we're going to make a 5-star folder that we're going to put our business card in. And that's where we're going to stick some of the things you mentioned, the listing agreement, the seller disclosure, the lead-based paint. And you might say, well, we're going to do all that through Dotloop. I still always give them a copy of that. I want them to know everything is transparent. Here's a copy, happy reading. If they decide that they want me to review it with them right then and there, or if they decide they want to sign up right then and there, we want to have those documents available.
Yeah,
but also
prepared.
The seller, pardon me?
Be prepared. Yep.
Be prepared. Yep. And then you mentioned having your CMA in there, and I always have two, theirs and mine. And so if we don't get to certain things, I can pull them out if I want to. If I don't, they're still there, but I have their packet, their BSA, their tax information and property records. And then you said you put in some statistics?
Yeah, you can go in Flex and you can pull what's happening in your market.
Okay.
Because again, I'm not good at remembering statistics on the top of my head. Some people can just do that. I can't. So I have it with me and I put it in that folder, because in most cases they're going to ask you, so what's the market like? How many days on market and all that. And I don't want to give false information.
Right. So I'm going to share my screen and let's run through what your presentation looks like. Jen had just commented and said she's excited, feels like hers needs a little bit of help. And so, whoops, Want to do that?
And they are welcome. You can copy whatever you want. That's how I
Yeah.
feel.
Why is this not up? There we go. Sorry about
Because
that.
Kim has great information online too.
Keeps popping. Sorry.
Oh,
There we go. Oh, doorbell's ringing. Okay. I don't think I need to answer that. Let's hope not. Sorry. It is
I'm
live.
glad it's not my dog barking.
Okay. So Cindy, so did I forget anything else that's in your folder? Did we get everything? So you have that folder and then you have this presentation. Is that inside that folder that we just talked about as well?
Yep. So I kind of have a system, and I know it's
Okay.
it's kind of an odd system, but it works for me. And like I said, I use the folder, the 5-star folder. I
Okay.
use the Selling Your Home brochure. I highly recommend that.
Okay.
And then I put together a little CMA with these in there, and I put them all in there. And then I have I know it's old school, I have a file folder because I'm going to have my notes and stuff, because I don't want to forget information or my book or notes. So I have that for me. So.
Okay. So then you have this that you'll pull out and go through. This talks about an intro and a little bit about 5-star and who we are.
Yep.
Right. Okay. And then there's another page here about what's a CMA. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, because you have a lot of times people get confused about what's an inspection and appraisal and inspection, the same thing. CMA, is that an appraisal and all that? So I'll go through and I'll explain to them, I've pulled comps, and I, like Kim said, 3 to 6 months. Sometimes you have to go a little bit out depending on what type of property it is, especially if you're dealing with a farm property. And I tell them kind of what I do, and then I show them, it'll do I do a breakdown. It'll show high, low, and medium. And I'll kind of already have in my head what I'm thinking after I tour the house.
Okay. So you talk about, just explain it. It's easy for us as realtors to use these words, CMA, market analysis, but what does that mean to the consumer? So I like that. And then it's all branded very nicely. And then she's got her intro with, I love the QR code.
It's kind of fancy, isn't it?
Yeah. And your beautiful picture. And she looks professional. You look very professional. You have all your information here. And then talks about, a little bit about you. So I love that. And then you mentioned this earlier, you have a marketing plan. What makes you different than realtor B that might come in tomorrow to meet with that seller? This is what you're saying I'm going to do for you, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I want to make that connection with that seller. I want him to like me, because I think if a seller is comfortable with you, they're gonna pick you, and if you've got things laid out so they can understand them. I'm not going to go through and I'm not good with big words or anything like that, but I'll tell them, look, I will work hard to get your home sold. I will follow up with you. And I want to make that connection. And again, the trust thing, Kim, exactly what you said.
And some of these, you can change this up, whoever, for whatever appointment you're on. Maybe it's a higher end property. You're going to advertise on some luxury websites. Maybe you're going to do a drone video. Maybe you like to walk the neighborhood and hold a pre-open house with the neighbors before it ever goes live. I hear a lot of agents that do that. Might just do a little open house for the people in the neighborhood so they can come in and preview it. And the objection comes up, well, they're just nosy neighbors. I see that differently. Neighbors sell houses. They pick their friends. They bring people in who they want to be their neighbors and their friends. So this is a nice, and don't promise something that you're not going to do. But whatever your strategy is, make sure that you outline this. I will also ask them, I think part of a listing appointment is communication. So I always write down on my notepad, what's the best way to communicate with you? if there's a showing, do you want me
Great,
to
yeah.
email, text, call you? Some people want, they want you to call them still. A lot of them, you can go into showing time and I can set myself up as a listing agent and I can set up the owner and co-owner. And the minute I get a showing request, they get it too. I explain to them, they say yes or no if that works. And that just saves a lot of time. Some clients might not want that. They might want you to manage that differently. So really important to ask that question, but you're already opening up. I'm here to work with you. What works best for you?
Yep, absolutely. And Kim, here on the comparable, see how I
Yeah.
I do a highest, average, and low.
Yes, I like that.
I've sold several houses in this neighborhood.
Okay.
But I made it so they could see exactly what the high. So I actually went in to see some of those that sold for high, like what the upgrades were in flex and all that. So I knew what the difference would be if their house didn't have those upgrades. So again, I know what I was talking about.
Right. So you knew if I went into this home on this appointment and nothing is updated, it still has the original carpet, the original Formica. And then I go in and I'm comparing to these homes that I looked at already that have a new roof, granite, updated kitchens, then you can adjust, right away as to where maybe that price point is. The other thing I do is I print a lot of extra details on some homes. I can't tell if I'm going to be comparable with or not. And I keep them in my folder because sometimes I need to bring out the ones that are really nice, say it without saying it, but this is what you aren't, right? So if you're about a 260 and this is a 304.5, I'm going to show you the 304.5 so they can see the difference between the homes. So I like to use that strategy sometimes in pricing. So I like this. And they've also heard the number, because if they want to start high, they've also heard 260 and they've also heard 229.
Yeah, because that's a big difference on there. And one of them was a cash sale, no appraisal. So again, you don't. And then what I'll do too, not to go back to what we're talking about, when I'm sitting at the table with them or talking with them, I'll actually ask them questions that kind of lead up to, so, what were you expecting to get for the home? So I kind of have, I really haven't had, maybe a couple times people haven't said, but in most cases, they may, or if they get comfortable with you, they just start talking and I jot that number down.
Me too.
So
they'll say, well, my neighbor's got 305 across the street. The worst thing we can do is not know what sold on the same street when we go in. So that's why we do a lot of digging prior to even going in to meet. So they know they have access to the internet, they know their neighbors. So and I will say the same thing. Did you have a price in mind? So that we can get from them to see if we're all on the same page and what their thinking is. So this one is the value of your home. So you explain this to them, Cindy?
Yeah, I go through that, quickly, I don't read it, but I go through and say, hey, this is information. It'll kind of tell you, how the value is figured and what buyers are looking for.
Right. So these are talking points for you. Like you said,
they really are.
If you get nervous and you lose your thinking, you always have that book. It's a little bit of a crutch if you're newer at this, but even sometimes when you're not newer, like, the book is there and this information is there. And sometimes we may not even go through it line by line. I rarely do. But like you said, we talked about this. And then you're leaving it for them so that they can go back and look at it later. So I really like that. So that's some more great information. And then your next one is first impressions. This is very important. We have this sheet. We also have some solo sheets that we get from photographers. 5-Star has made one. How to prepare your home for sale. This is a very for sale. This is a very, very important piece. Yeah,
because that first impression that buyer gets going through that. So if you have a porch that's all, and I'll be nice about it, but I'll say, hey, you know what we could do? I really think it would help, put a really cute wreath on the door. I would, take a hose and clean out the front porch, get a really cool welcome mat and that, because that's going to be the buyer's first impression into your home.
Mhm. And sometimes I'll ask them, a lot of times they'll ask me, so please tell me what you think we should do. That's amazing when they ask that question.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
we
I have
love
to
that,
hold
like-
back.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things I like to tell my sellers is decluttering, painting, and cleaning go a long way. So often I will focus on that, cleaning, decluttering, painting. One of my recent sales, the bathroom, he started to paint, never finished it, didn't have any towel racks up, no rugs, no shower curtain. And I'll ask the question, do you think you'd be able to paint this and put this back together? It would make a great impression. Bathrooms are really important. So I'll ask them, would you be open to painting your front door or putting on new hardware for the front door? I'm always amazed when I go to a front door at a showing, sometimes what I see. And I think one of the best things we can do is step back as the agent and look at it like the consumer, like the buyer.
Yeah,
Like I just
for
walked
sure.
up to this house and what am I seeing? Like you said, a wreath, a doormat,
Yeah.
paint the front door, put a fresh pot of flowers, all
Yeah,
of those things.
inexpensive things that don't take a lot of work.
Yeah. And we will go into that home that, bless their heart. I had a client a couple years ago and she had just decorated for Halloween and it was really cluttered. I didn't ask her to take it down. We have to use common sense and
Yeah.
I didn't want to offend her. And it was cutesy, but it wasn't what I would have done. And we sold the house. So we just have to walk kind of carefully when we're criticizing somebody's home or critiquing it, right? But we want to help them. I had one of my clients ask me, well, I said, do you think you could would you mind taking the pictures off of the refrigerator for the photos? And he said, why? To him, it's like, that's my son. That means everything to me. Why would I take my photos down? So we just need to walk very carefully when we're in somebody's home and explain this process very gently. So, all right, so this is really important here. And then
I like how my name and my contact information is on everything.
Every page. Yep.
Yeah.
Every single page. That's nice. Where did you make this? Did you have a template from a program or did you make this in Canva or where did you make your sheets?
No, I actually have a program.
Okay.
And that's how I did it.
Okay.
For me, the easier, the better. But I want it to look professional but I want it to be something that's me, because everybody's different. You have to put your own personality into your listing.
And I know RPR gives us the opportunity to upload sheets into our presentation as well. Okay. And then I like this. Why do you need me? We're always establishing value. Always. And like we said, you probably aren't going to go through this and hold the paper up and read, you need me because this is what I do.
Here. No, I'm not.
No.
This I actually don't go. I have it in
their packet
folder so they can go through and no, I don't go line by line on this one.
No, and it makes me think of, maybe you walk into an open house, you walk through the house and they hand you the brochure. And if you're in the market to find a home, you'll go through the brochure later and you'll read it. Or if you're buying a car, you might read the information later, but you're expecting the salesperson to give you the information and then you can go home and dive in a little bit deeper. So that's very nice. Nicely done. And then I love this page. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, they always ask, well, how do you price homes? How are you doing this? And I love the line where it says the market never lies, but it can change its mind.
Right here.
And the first 2 weeks of the house, the first 2 weeks of marketing are crucial. In most cases, the first 2 weeks of that listing, that's when you're gonna get your most activity.
Right here, right? Am I reading this right?
But when you
right here, 90%. Is this the first 2 weeks? This is a different graph. We have one in our 5-star selling book as well. So your best pricing is right here at market value. Help me understand this. I don't think
it is. Right. And it says fair market value is what a willing buyer and a willing seller agree by contract is a fair price for the home. So, and it says it can be impacted by a lot of different things. So if you're looking at the asking price, the market value, you're getting about 60%
I see.
of the buyers.
And if you're 15% under, you're going to get about
Lower, you're getting about
90%.
90. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
But it kind of gives them a guide.
Yeah.
And again, I don't necessarily, because I want everything to be positive when I'm meeting with them. And I'm not saying this is negative, but this is something I would leave with them for more information.
Right. And if that comes up, then you always have the graph to refer to. Often we don't have to. And here's the one I was looking for. And this is showing you in weeks on the market, the activity.
Yes.
And so it's really important. Watch how it starts to drop off right here, and that's going to go down. So pricing is very, very important, because we're typically going to have most of our showings and activity in the first week and then second week. And we need to adjust really fast if things aren't going the way that we had expected on our price, right?
And I'll have that conversation with them. If the house, and I'll have that after I know I'm getting the listing, but if the house is priced, if we're not getting activity at that price, then we definitely want to make a change within the first week or two, no more than the 2 weeks.
Right, for sure. So, and then here you have your client testimonies, right?
Yep.
And those are very, very important. And, it's really good to have. I was looking at one yesterday, and they actually looks like they had permission. It was on a website. I'm hoping they had permission. And they had the people's face. They actually had a photo of those that were given their testimony. And I thought that was kind of nice. So, we always wanted, so this is a wonderful presentation, Cindy. Very, very good.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it leaves something for them as well. Let me stop sharing here. So, there's several things that sell a house. I always like to talk to my sellers about this. And one is the market, right? The market is doing what the market's going to do. I mean, that is just, it is what it is. And when homes were selling like hotcakes, because that's what the market was doing, right? And so we can't change that. Either the market's good, interest rates are low, there's inventory, that is the market. The second thing that we can't change is the location. If you are on a busy street, you could pick the house up and move it. It's not going to make sense, but you can't change the location. If it's in a certain school system that's popular or one that's not popular, you're not going to pick your house up and move it. The other thing we can't change is the style. If it's a ranch and someone is looking for a 2-story with lots of bedrooms, we can't change that. Or vice versa. If you have a 2-story and you have a retired couple that don't want to do the stairs, we can't change that. So the market, the location, and the style, we can't change. But what we do have control of are price and condition.
Yeah.
And so I like to that's a great way to open up my conversation with my sellers about pricing it right, and about condition, and about doing some things around the home, especially cleaning, painting, and decluttering. Those are things that often we don't do till we have to, but decluttering is a really big part of selling your home. And the smell when you walk in, and the cleanliness of it is very, very important. I always pull the shower curtain back in the shower, and I want to see what that tub looks like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Always
you
look.
do. It's important.
Yeah.
And like you said, decluttering and all that. But I think what happens too is, people collect things and they have collections. So it's a sensitive topic, but that kind of helps me is say, hey, the photographer, let's get the photographer scheduled. But when he's there, that's when the house needs to look the best.
Yes.
And then once, and sometimes, okay, I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I may go over there and switch things around. If they say, hey, I'm just not good at that. I'm like, hey, no problem. I'll be there an hour early. We'll get this. I'll move trash can, whatever. But that's a way to have nicely, gently let them know, just have it. And I find when people do that, they're really glad they did it, and they'll keep the house that way for a while.
Mhm. And I've had to have someone who's lived in a home for 30 plus years pack up the collector dolls. Funny story, lovely lady put away her Elvis mannequin. I mean, seriously, you just, I always appreciate, like, oh my gosh, you must be an Elvis fan. I just love him, and you really rave about it. And then you go, is there any way we could take that down?
Could you put it in the closet? No.
I mean, it's just that's what we do.
Could you put it on
And
the front porch?
yeah, the greeting. And so there's just sometimes we get into these really sensitive situations, and that's why we want to connect first. So they trust us, they like us,
Yeah.
they know that we're here to get their home sold in the quickest amount of time for the best terms that work for them.
Yeah.
And, I want to say this, the listing presentation is important. It can be fancy, it can be not fancy.
Yeah.
I
Mine's
personally,
not fancy.
yeah, I personally go in with my 5-star selling book and my folder with my documents in it, and I roll from there. For me, that's what works. But I
Yep.
love these other listing presentations that others do. And I think they're filled with a lot of value, and it looks very professional. And so, be sure to use your tools and the things that, use your tools that, that you have in front of you. So we just have a question here. Yes, and so the question here is what happens when another agent might come up with a different evaluation? I'm not sure of the exact question there, but let's do our best with that, Cindy.
Okay. Well, that's kind of where I'm going to talk with the seller about kind of what they're thinking.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be there and say something bad about another agent. You never, ever want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen and try to get as much information from that seller, because the only way I would know that is if the seller told me that. I mean, if they're saying, well, hey, they came in way above, and I'm like, okay, did they say how they got that and all that? And then I don't want to lose the listing. Obviously I don't want to price a listing 50 grand over or anything. But again, I'll go back through the comps, and that may be the time that I'll say, hey, you know what, let me just look, let me look and see if there's other comps in that. Can I get with you tomorrow at 12? Can I stop by, or does that work for you? If I'm really confused on how they got that price. But then I'll also let them know, hey, you can always price a little bit above. But I want you to be prepared that if you're not getting any offers at that or much activity, then we do know that price is higher. But so
I think it depends
I'll kind
how
of
high.
roll with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll roll with
it. Is it $10,000 difference? Is it 30? Is it 50? Or
Yeah,
is
if
it
it's
below?
5, hey,
We
well,
can go
maybe,
5 higher,
yeah,
right? Let's give it a shot.
but I'm gonna make it sound like I know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
and but I think the important thing is, Kim, on these listings is go and do it. If
Yes.
you do it and do the best you can, you're not Kim, you're not Cindy.
Yeah.
Believe me, I tried to copy everybody, and I just gotta be me, I guess. I don't know. But doing it is the most important thing, because you can do it and you'll be glad. And just do the best you can, or take somebody with you.
And yeah, if you're newer to this, it's always a positive to take a pro with you, take someone who's been doing this. And that referral fee or splitting it is so worth the money, because 0 of 0 is 0. And if you don't win, you get 0. But if you team up with a seasoned agent and they charge you a percentage, not only are they going to help you win, you're going to learn all their tips and all their trades. They're going to share things with you that you may not have ever had access to. They're also going to, maybe you're going to gain this relationship, and maybe there'll be other things that you can lean on them for. You might be able to help them with. So I'm always about teaming up, and we always just, the bottom line here is we want to always be the pro. We want to be the expert. Whatever way you go into a listing presentation, be confident with it, know your information,
Yeah.
dress like a professional. I always love looking at listing presentations, and sometimes I incorporate a few of those sheets into my folder. I personally feel like everything that I need is in my seller book with 5-star. I might have a separate sheet that talks about my marketing plan. And so everybody does it different, but we really appreciate, I know this went a little long today, but I think it's filled
Oh,
with
no, it
a
did,
lot of,
didn't it?
yeah, it's when
It
you're
was
having fun,
fun.
it's, yeah. And just hope agents just take away a few nuggets. If they have questions, feel free to reach out to Cindy or myself.
Yes,
And just go in and really, main thing is connect, know the house, and have a plan to get that property sold for your seller. And we just want to encourage you to, go for it. And if you need some help, reach out to us, because we're always glad to help as well. So any
Yep.
final thoughts, Cindy?
I couldn't say it better, Kim. I think really go, if you get an opportunity for a listing appointment, don't shy away from it.
Yeah.
Ask for help if you need help, and you can do it. And once you do it, you're going to say, what did I make this big deal about? So,
Right. You're just connecting and talking about the home and
Yep.
being the pro.
Yep.
Well, good. Well, thank you for being with us today. It's always good to be with you.
Thanks,
And
Kim.
until next time, hope everybody's doing great, and we will see you then.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.